Instagram, for fuck's sakes. Welcome to the Human Bleed. Today we're talking about emotional regulation, and you don't have it. How this affects you. How this affects you in every area of your life. If you know anything about what we teach, we talk about being someone who knows who they are, no matter where they are, how they handle situations, and what we've recognized after helping and working with 8,000 people in 4 years, that the more we dive into this, we're seeing this identity crisis, not midlife crisis. We're seeing great divorce. We're seeing all these problems, these symptomatic symptoms that are symptoms of true issues identified under 7 categories, 7 human bleeds, and how this is affecting the economy. How this is affecting business, the bottom line. But also, we love to tie this back to, what if you're a stay-at-home mom?
Right.
What if you're just trying to help your neighbor? Right?
That's right.
See?
Yep. The bottom line is the bottom line in every aspect, every room, every space, no matter where you go, there is a return on investment, whether it be relationships, whether it be peace, whether it be trust, whether it be happiness or whatever. And then when you come into the financial aspects of it as well. And so what we want to do today is to talk about how being regulated is really the first step in being a good leader. Because without regulation, without emotional, not necessarily masterful emotional intelligence, but just being able to say, hey, I know who I am in this space and I know how to show up in this space and I'm going to be in control of me. And that's one of the things that I often have to really emphasize is that we are only responsible for ourselves, our emotions, and how we show up and respond to those things around us. And sometimes we get all that mixed up thinking we've got to control other people. But anyway, let's get into it.
Yeah, like one of the first things I wanted to cover is we think about something that I teach, stat response. Right. Stat response is instead of what I call safe reaction. Safe being you keep yourself safe.
Yeah.
And a stat response is, when you follow the acronym, is a way to structure understand what is happening when it comes to triggers. Who's being triggered? Is it them? Is it you? Right. Adventure, where we can use curiosity. We've talked about that recently.
Right.
Or we can have fun and move somebody from negative to positive. And the last T in stat response is really just about being somebody who's consistent, okay? Meaning, I call it the test, like everybody's got to pass a test. And this isn't just for women. I think women get a bad rep for testing men. I think that's bullshit. I think if you say you're going to call me, you don't call me, then I think you failed my tests. You know what I'm saying? Like, we do what we do. We do what we say, rather, or we don't. But the reason why I bring this up is because this is a wonderful tool that I teach. We combine it with Catherine's half wrap to really understand people, get to know what's going on, what they're truly feeling, and then we can move them out into where we want to go, i.e. a better life or a better business decision. Or I just talked to a man, tried to invite him to the program, and he was like, I need time to think about it. I'm like, that's a problem. People can't respond, make decisions in a time of crisis.
Yes.
Never mind day to day when they're just afraid if their spouse is happy, or if they're afraid of pissing off their boss or whatever. And the reason why is because it's really hard to respond, not react, if you can't emotionally be regulated.
Right.
No decision should be emotional, no matter what you're going through.
That's right. That's right. And that's something I've heard you say numerous times over the last 2 years, talking to potential clients. They call you because they want you to help them get where you are. They call us because they want what we have. And then you tell them, listen, I don't want you to make an emotional decision. So until you can make a controlled decision, then why don't you just take some time? I'll call you tomorrow, what have you. I've seen you do that, because we can tell sometimes when people are acting out of emotion, either one way or the other. And when we talk about emotional regulation, it's a clinical way of speaking about being in control. But now some people will say, well, I am pretty controlled. But silence and calmness is not control. Just because you're silent, just because you're calm, does not mean you're regulated. And so emotional control is the first form of leadership in the home. And leadership then goes into every other space. It goes into the workspace, it goes into the community, it goes into the religious space. But leadership is not the ability to end or prevent an argument. It's not the ability to say, okay, we're not fighting here, or there's no problems here. That's a fool's errand, basically. It's the ability to leadership in this space is the ability to choose your presence while the chaos is happening, while the fires are burning. So you can love your family deeply and you can destabilize them regularly just by your mood, just by your breath, just by your countenance. And so love and self-regulation are not the same thing. So I just thought about getting that off the table because a lot of people have argued, well, I'm pretty calm. I don't talk back or I don't fight back. No, that's withdrawal. I mean, we can talk about how that's not emotionally regulated either, but it is.
No. Like if you think about it, even in my own journey with we talked about yesterday, I believe, with Catherine, you know, she would learn how to be a good wife and engage, right?
Yeah.
Not get through the abuse that I was doing, meaning
Right.
prior emotionally regulated. You might say she was more emotionally regulated. Shutting down is essentially what you're saying right now.
Yeah.
That's not emotional regulation. That is withdrawal, like you just mentioned.
Right.
And I think if we start understanding emotional regulation is about the person that shows up regardless of what's happening. Because when we're talking about leadership, you don't have to be, the man in the home. Okay.
Right.
As women have many different skills than your husband and vice versa. Right. You can be, a low level first day on the job employee. Okay. And you can provide an atmosphere of leadership, even though they technically would think that you know shit. Right. They don't know anything about you yet.
That's right.
Who are you? Emotional regulation would go so much further in many workplaces than actually having certain other skills for the workplace.
Right.
Because every workplace, nobody's taught emotional regulation and they need it. Think about how dysregulated we get with our children.
Yes.
Same fucking thing.
Yeah.
Right.
We get triggered over the littlest things and we wonder why they either don't come to us or they avoid us or their behavior starts to go sideways. And so, emotional control, emotional regulation, it's really hard because you think about regulate and control, it's like you're getting a handle on it, but really it's about who you are in the space. And I know I'm being redundant right now, but it's not, I want to say this very clearly. It's not suppression. It's not suppression. It's okay to feel deeply, but still act responsibly. It's okay to feel deeply and still say, hey, you know what? This is, I feel this way, but it's not going to drive me. And furthermore, it's not going to drive my team and it's not going to drive my marriage. It's not going to drive my parenting. And so suppressing emotion doesn't regulate it. Some people think that that's the step to do it. It just relocates it. And what gets pushed down, what's going to happen when you push it down? I mean, if I hold you under the water in your pool cast, eventually you're either going to die or you're going to scratch, punch, and kick to get up. Because if you keep pushing something down, it's going to surface. It's going to try to surface. And it's going to surface at someone in a specific space.
What an awesome example. An awesome example, because it's so far beyond the truth of what most of us would do, obviously.
Right.
But I think it's great because what happens underwater, if you are emotionally dysregulated and you panic, you're going to run out of oxygen faster. You're going to produce more carbon dioxide faster and you're going to fucking die.
Right.
So it's such a great example. James, what would you say off your top of your head when you teach emotional regulation? What's the first step to becoming emotionally regulated?
Well, it's one of those things where we're first understanding what it's not. And it's not a situation where it's a personality trait. Some people say, well, you've heard this, right? You're so emotional. You're so emotional. You're so emotional. But that's not necessarily the case. Just because someone feels and has passion doesn't make them emotional. And so the first step is understanding that when you feel emotions or you find yourself driving or being driven by your feelings, you're not broken or wrong or weak. So that to me is the first step, because what happens when you are driven by emotion or directed by emotion or, overcome by emotion, then if we have this belief system, we come to the table going, oh man, I'm messed up. I can't control myself. So then that creates more emotion. And then it's this compounding thing. So typically when we react, and especially chaotically, we're not even reacting to the point that we're upset about or triggered by. We're reacting to the point that we're reacting. And we don't. So that would be my first, I don't know if it's a step, but I think the foundation, the first step that you stand on to know it's okay. Everybody has feelings. Everybody has emotion. So don't beat yourself up for it. Let's just learn what they are. They're a signal, they're not a steering wheel.
See, I would argue that I think that is correct. It's a foundation. It's not a first step.
That's correct.
Right? Because if you understand emotional regulation without a foundation, this is anything in life, guys, without a foundation, it's like when guys try to recreate the spark when there's no sex at home. Well, there's no kindling right now, which means you have no foundation.
Right.
Right. So why are you worried about dates and flowers and, the flirts and shit when you don't even know how to talk to each other anymore?
Right.
Right. I would argue that the first step for emotional regulation is actually understanding what you're feeling. I think that most people react. They can't lead. They don't respond. whether you're talking to your partner, your children, whether you're dealing with like a conflict at work, you're trying to get an employee to do a better job, whatever. I would argue that you're acting in a secondary emotion,
Yes.
i.e. reacting. And when you learn to respond, it's because you understand first primarily what you're actually feeling. So let's pretend for a second, because anger is an easy one, or frustration.
Right.
Okay. Let's pretend we're in the workplace for a second. You're frustrated that somebody's not getting you the thing that you said they said they were going to deliver for you. I still haven't got that email, Joe. Right. Well, how do we speak? How do we react? Hey, I still haven't got that email, Joe. Most often you're not going to think, I'm feeling what? What am I feeling? Because I can't do it. I'm feeling like crap, scared I can't get my job done.
Right.
Am I feeling nervous that I'm going to look bad for my boss?
Mm-hmm.
I.e. I'm feeling like it's a reflection of who I am. I'm not going to look good enough.
Right.
I'm feeling like I'm not good enough now. And I have to blame Joe. Right. So if I learn what I'm feeling, I can then go, okay, shit, pause. We learn to shut the fuck up, or the women in Catherine's program work with you, James, and the silence is strength. We learn when to talk and what to say and how to say. So you could go over to Joe, and I can't remember now who Joe was, but anyways, Joe could go to the other guy and he could say, hey, buddy, everything all right? Yeah, totally fine, blah, 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 blah. Oh, man, talking fast. You sure? Right. And by the time you get to it, you're like, hey, bud, appreciate we're so busy, and I see you got all these things going on. I really need that email. Do you know when you'll get that for me?
Yeah.
And I'm going to respond to get what I want, i.e. leadership, versus reacting and saying, Joe, you didn't give me the email, or gosh darn it, was your spouse? You never do what you didn't get the milk? Fuck, you never do anything you said you're going to do.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah, and I would say that there's two different contexts in here. First steps in the sense of just growing emotional intelligence, growing emotional regulation, versus first steps in the moment. And so one of the first things that we teach a lot, Cass, and people get tired of hearing me say it, and everything we do with the 16 weeks and all the other stuff that we do corporately, you got to pause, because the success is in the pause, it's in the stop. So you feel a certain way. Now, if you've been doing the work when it's not in chaos, you've been learning to understand your body. And then it segues into understanding what you feel, then understanding the root of why that trigger exists to start with. That's work that you do when you're not in the moment. But you got to pause in the space. A very good friend, a lifelong friend last night was telling me about just a chaotic thing that's coming up in his life in the next 2 weeks. He and his siblings, they're all upset. It's a parental issue and it's a hard decision. And he was just like, when I get there, I think I'm going to lose my mind. I think I'm going to get in trouble. I think we're going to get, physical. And I said, well, you can think that. And I looked at him, he starts to cry, and he said, I don't know what to do. I said, well, it doesn't matter what you know to do. I said, you already know that you feel this way. I said, but it's okay to feel this. It's okay to want to hurt somebody, that's hurting your mom. It's okay to it's okay to feel vengeance or to feel justice, but it's not okay to act that way. I said, yes. So if you just take a minute, if you just pause for 30 seconds when you feel that and ask yourself, who am I right now? Am I the guy that's going to throw my life away? Am I just like this guy that's been abusing my mom, or am I me? And just pause and do just that idea. I mean, we've been talking for 30 minutes. Just that idea sort of had him calm down a little bit. Wow. All I got to do is pause. I said, then you get to make a decision. Now, if you go to fisticuffs after that, it's a decision you've made. It's not a decision you've been driven to by your emotions. And it may be the wrong one, but at least it's one that you did in control.
If you stayed in control.
If you stayed in control.
Quite often you guys get regulated and then you dial back. Think about what's the example at work that we always talk about. You want to fire back that email response, but what if you wait a day?
What if you wait a day?
Yeah. Wait a day. Yep. Typically, your emotional regulation kicks in, your thought process, not thinking in emotion, secondary emotions, that is, starts to really get you to be logical.
Yes.
Right? That's right. Go back to when we were talking about the beginning of the call here today or the show today here, when I was talking about trying to invite him into the program, needing to make a decision, right? See, most of us in the chaos, we can't. Every single person that gets on the phone with me or Catherine or you, they're in some sort of crisis. Right. Okay. And we are like 450 episodes on our other podcast. Like, we're always saying you have to make sure you're making decisions logically.
Yes.
Right. And so it often blows my mind if we think about what it's like when you're making decisions, how we think we're doing the right thing,
yes,
but we're acting in so much fear In fact, I dare say, with anxiety meds being like the top prescribed medication across the United States, I think North America actually, and with people dealing with insecurity from that, right? The monster, as I call it, our decision making process based off of fear. In fact, the live event that we did, that's how I opened it up. I was talking about, well, a little after I opened up, I was talking about fear and teaching them insecurity was not about affairs. Insecurity was about fear, and fear rules us in almost all of our decisions.
Yes, that's right.
All of us.
That's right.
Until you learn to regulate.
And some
right?
people would hear that and say, well, I'm not really scared of anything, but you are. Fear is not about terror all the time. But I would say that in an emotional sense, there is a terror there. What if it's a terror that you're not doing the right thing? What if it's a fear that you're not respected? Because being respected makes you feel valuable. What if it's a fear that you're going to lose your job, or a fear that you're not going to be seen competent? That was a big one for me. I was always fearful that I wasn't going to be seen competent. So what did I do? I put a mastery level of expectation upon my life on everything that I did. And I learned and I learned and I learned because I'm curious. But most importantly, I learned everything that I've learned because I didn't want to be caught off guard and be seen incompetent. So there is a fear. There's a fear that the productivity level. Let's just look at it at work. Let's just say you've got quotas, you've got things you need to accomplish, you've got a task list, or you've got, whatever, whether it be financial or just productive administratively, and it's not happening because you depend on other people. We've had this problem in our organization, and we depend on other people, but all of a sudden those other people, we can't do their work for them. And so we see that they're not doing the work or not doing it to the level that they need to be doing it. And it's very easy for us to just fly in there. What's wrong with you? Why can't you do the work? I depended on you. Now, all those things come from a place of expressing the emotion. And the emotion could just be frustration, but it could also be fear. Because the fear of, wow, I didn't do my job. Wow, I trusted somebody. They let me down. What's going on? What else is happening? We don't really know what it is. But I think you hit it on the head when you say that. I think fear drives 99% of everything we do when we're not regulated.
Yeah, I think most people, if you really understand what we're trying to get at here, because this will affect you in your home, especially. The number one driver of fear is going to be what you're feeling with the person you love the most.
Yes.
Okay. So now you take that to your decision-making process and you think about, anyone that joins one of our programs is so afraid of even their partner knowing they're in the program, or knowing that, or expect. A man texted me last night after joining the program, proud. He sent a text message to his wife. This is his fear-based decision-making, okay? And he shows me the screenshots and he says, baby, I just spent so many dollars, and I'm going to be so excited to be doing so much time, and like insert the blank, because there's lots of options, so I don't think it matters. But
right.
He's inserting all the details, and I'm going to be the man you finally deserve. Or sorry, the man finally that you deserve. And I'm like, I sent a voice note. I was like, delete that message right now. You are specifically trying to show up, showing her, telling her, not showing her that everything is going to be great, because you want her to see you in a light, like I'm going to do the work, rather than just being a man that she can be attentive to and loving to and want to stay with. Fear drives your decisions. We do this all the time. I can't tell you how many people make mistakes at work because you're thinking in fear. Let's just go to the financial burden that we know that the United States is going through right now. Well, I think most economies are going through right now, right? We're making decisions under pressure of not having enough money, right? Fear of the job loss that you talked about.
That's right.
I think that we don't necessarily feel afraid with our children unless you're hyper aware. I'll tell you what, I teach in my program ways to show men to realize that they're making decisions based off of wanting to look good, like a good father, wanting to be good enough or as good as mom, right? I myself used to dress the kids perfectly to go to the park. This is just the girls. Riddick wasn't born yet. It was very early in my journey for growth. And I was dressing them just to see, or hear rather, people say, wow, your kids are so cute. I would play with them just to hear, oh, you're such a great dad.
Yeah.
Right? Fear of not being good enough.
Yeah.
People don't know it.
That's right. I saw that same thing when I was in California, and I'd take the kids a couple of days a week to the park, and because there's just, you're living in the big city, there's nowhere to play. So you could take them to the park. The yards are about square feet. And you'd see that. You'd see other dads and moms there, and they'd come and they'd be dressed up, or they'd have their nice stuff, or they'd do whatever. And some of them admitted that stuff to me. Oh, I'm out here because I just want to be seen, good dad. I read an article that good dads go to the park. And see my buddy over there, he was telling me about it. And I just want to make sure that I'm being a good dad. But ultimately, it's about fear of not being seen correctly. And, I was thinking about fear in the leader, especially in organizations that we've both worked in large companies and, growing the organizations that we're both working with now, and then together with what we're doing with the Human Bleed. A lot of times fear shows up in ways that we don't see it. And one of the things that I learned in my life is that fear showed up in over control. And it wasn't like maniacal control. It was just like, I couldn't delegate anything. I couldn't delegate because my standards were too high, because I was hypervigilant with perfectionism. And so ultimately it boiled down to, I was a leader who did not trust what happens when I wasn't watching or doing the work. And that distrust is not excellence. It's not excellent. People like to use the word excellence as a value or a virtue in an organization. It's not. It's literally fear. It's like, I'm not good enough at my job, and if they mess up, I'm going to be seen in a bad light. It's terrible. I lost you.
Laura says, is it fear or just wanting to keep up an appearance in the community? So hopefully, Laura, you caught what James was saying.
Same thing.
It is keeping up the appearance in the community. You're absolutely correct, but it's because of an underlying fear of not looking good enough. Okay.
Right.
So if you can imagine thinking about wanting to, especially with people who are successful in specific areas of their life,
Yes.
Maybe it's physical, maybe it's professional, maybe it is a relationship, most likely not if you're watching our feed, but you're successful in an area, then you have this self-doubt of like, why can't I do that? It's a fear of not ever being good enough. And see, most people start a process of this decision-making
Yes.
as a young child. You have to. It's even with the best parents on the planet, they can't meet your needs inherently fast enough, because kids like, no, I wanted the blue cup. Like, you never give me the right cup. You don't love me. The kids are little bastard narcissists. You know what I mean? like so. And inherently, from a young age, we feel like, oh man, you must not love me. I'm not good enough, because we never get to, like, it's how we are, or we operate, because you can't meet a kid's needs fast enough, right? And that's because life gets in the way. And so we edit this programming, learning to make decisions based on fear, so we can never be emotionally regulated.
Right.
And that's why you see it temporarily fade when you have the oxytocin and you're feeling all high, and the validation and approval that you're both giving, and when you start a relationship, right?
Yes.
Because you are good enough. But when life gets in the way, you're trying to buy a house and you're working more hours, you're having babies, right? Whatever. When life gets in the way and interrupts the pattern, we start getting defensive, taking it personal, because we go back to what we knew, which is fear-based. I'm not going to get my milk, Mom. Mom, why can't I have my milk? And screaming. We go back to what we've always known, even though we did get our milk.
That's right.
Most of us.
That's right. Yeah, this fear, we talk about decisions a lot. We could do an entire episode on just how decision-making is affected. Matter of fact, we did in our current 16-week stuff that we're doing a whole
16 weeks to connection is something that we've got in our app.
Yeah. And it's, decision paralysis a lot of times. And then decision permission, decision validation, and I'm thinking about this in the context of leadership, a leader, and I'll just and I tell this story a lot. And for those of you who have heard it, just hear it again. But I had someone tell me years ago, a mentor that had walked with me for years. And he said, man, you just got a lot of skills. You got a lot of charisma. You have the potential to lead a lot of people in your life. He said, but just remember this one thing, James. He said, if you're a leader and you're going forward and you turn around and there's nobody following you, he said, you're nothing but a man taking a walk. Don't ever forget that. And it took a while. I mean, I was 23, 22. When he said that to me, I was probably in my late 30s, mid 40s before that really sunk in, and then even more so in the last 2 to 3 years of my life, I've really understood that. And so when we see leaders, especially at the job level, whether you're an employee or a manager or supervisor or the owner or an executive or whatever, everybody is leading. The question is, where are you leading the people around you? Where are you leading them? And one of the main things that I've found that fear is proven in leadership in the organization is not having the ability to say, I don't know. Let me find out. Everybody wants to have the answer, right? I don't know. I don't know is a good thing, Cass.
Yeah. I think it's really important. I just want to stick to where you're at there. Leading, everyone's leading,
Yes.
but the problem is when we're emotionally dysregulated, or I like to describe it as we don't have emotional intelligence. Okay. We're leading people. I call it backwards. And I know it's not actually backwards, but it's leading you towards the pain that you don't want. So let's look at some situations, for example. You know, affairs are not that common. People actually perpetuate the cycle
Yes.
because they're afraid, and they make decisions like having conversations about the rules of marriage and shit, whatever, questioning somebody, their partner's integrity, assuming they're cheating. These are all fear-based decisions. Okay. And if somebody is doing that, then they are leading their partner into an emotional state that is negative,
Right.
right? And yeah, I know, and now somebody's going to probably get mad because they're going through an affair, but the reality is, if you aren't leading forwards, like, i.e., trusting, loving, lifting, doing your part, you inherently were defensive, you blamed, you made decisions to back yourself to feel good enough, which then made your partner feel down. So if the affair did finally happen, that's why we have the tailspin of betrayal. You guys can DM tailspin and I'll send it to you. But like, it's why we have it. If you understand that you led them the wrong way, that's why I call it backwards. It doesn't matter that it's not actually backwards,
Right.
But like the backwards just doesn't make any sense because you started right.
Right.
But it's the wrong direction. So as far as I'm concerned, if it's not forward, it's not correct, it's not right, you're emotionally dysregulated. You create your own chaos instead of writing a new story for your life.
Right.
You actually write the story that's a nightmare.
Yeah.
Right.
And you
we
build
see
it.
this at work. Yeah. We see it at work too.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. We do. The person that's insecure about their competency, the person that's insecure about whether or not they're going to be able to do the job, the person that's insecure as to whether or not that their supervisor likes them or their coworker is going to treat them nice or what have you. The energy of that anxiety that they bring into just the physical space, not even the sensitive arena of nervous systems coming together, because we pick up on things we're not aware of consciously.
Mm-hmm.
They literally bring about the very thing that they're nervous about. And the reason that those things exist is because their value, their worth, their self, the root of who they are and their identity is bound up in their productivity, bound up in their promotion, bound up in how people observe them or see them, because they can't see themselves because they're never really sure. And they've borrowed identities and they've put on masks to serve them, to keep them safe in certain spaces. But ultimately, that just creates such anxiety. And I believe that almost all anxiety outside of clinical issues that we don't talk about on this show, but are really rooted in not knowing who you are. So you don't know how to show up. You don't know what decision to make. You don't know how to interact with people. I told one of my clients yesterday that he was talking about how he has a difficult person at work. I'm like, is it a difficult person or is it just difficult for you to show up into that space when they come around you? And by the end of the session, he's like, oh, wow, that's such a reframe, because he didn't want to deal with it because he didn't know how. But now that he knows who he is, I said, well, who are you? Well, I've always been this person over here trying to avoid this person. Now I'm going to just walk in and say, hey, how's it going? Lead that person and understand who you are. Now he's not nervous about it. Just in 2 days.
That's why it's so important to understand the 7 human bleeds that we've identified, right? Because now let's just use a different example. You're not getting along with your child. They're at that age, is what we'd say. They're at that age where they're just being rebels, right? And we make decisions, again, fear-based. In this case, you might think, well, I don't want them to turn out bad. Like if they get expelled from school from I never did it. What do you do it? When you play hooky.
You play hooky. You skip.
Yeah. Yeah. You skip school.
Skip school.
Right. So like when you're feeling like you'll look like a bad parent, their life might not turn out well. You're raising a bad kid. What if they get into drugs? You make fear-based decisions in how you may maybe say give punishment or consequences, right? Now imagine you are, let's just use a stay-at-home mom for a second, and you're trying to run the house, talk to your husband about it. He's like to do what dads do and come in there and lay the hammer down, give the fucking lecture, right? And he's got those same fears. You guys are disconnecting. You're breaking apart rather than connecting, right? Now you're husband who's not the stay-at-home parent goes to work and he's thinking about this shit, but he's also thinking about the disconnection that you didn't have sex,
Right.
right? You
That's
know,
right.
and he's also thinking about, you know, what financial problems they have if they have to. We used this example the other day. If they have to put their kids in private school,
Yeah.
or whatever, like
Yeah.
all of these things happen, and this is affecting every decision you make in your home, in your job. Bottom line's losing. Bottom line at home's losing. All because we're not emotionally regulated.
Right.
Right.
That's right. Yeah, and it's something too. We talk about like the Human Bleed Project. The the primary thing that we're doing in organizations is helping them see that there is a bleed, and it's a slow bleed, and it's costing the organization things that never appear on the P&L. And we discovered this by actually working with individuals and their families. So all of this compounding stuff that happens in the home, we're like, wow, it happens in organizations too. And what's the actual cost in an organization? It's continued loop and cycles of bringing work to home and home to work and work to home and home to community. But there's a specific thing that happens in when these bleeds are bleeding out. And one of the primary things that we discovered is this disengagement as withdrawal. One of the first conversations that we had, Cass, was looking at the raw data of thousands and thousands of pages of research just in the last few years that people aren't leaving the workplace, they're just disengaging. So they're there, but they're not there because they're no longer willing to take personal risk for the organization's outcomes. They don't bring issues to the table. They don't challenge assumptions. And they don't volunteer information. And so silence becomes basically the status quo, and it becomes rational when truth is costly because everybody in the organization doesn't feel safe to actually have truth. And so you end up with what, the presenteeism is that word that we kept seeing. What in the world? So all the people in the universities are talking about presenteeism. All right. So what that means is you're present, but you're absent. So it's a play on present and absenteeism, presenteeism.
That's
so
awesome.
The employee is present, but the employee is impaired. Why? By anxiety, cognitive overload, relationship stress, emotional depletion, everything. And who pays that labor cost? 70 to 80% capacity. So there's a 30 to 20% loss there. That gap accumulates every single day. And quite honestly, people don't see this, but the data shows us that it's better for a person to not be at work than to be at work in that state. It costs less.
Yeah. A lot less near misses,
Yep.
but I want to take this a little further for a second. If you can think about like porn being cited on 70% of all divorces in the United States, okay? That means it's included in
Right.
70%. The word porn is included in 70% of all divorce cases filed in the United States, okay? Currently. Now, if we have a problem that we're not addressing in the workplace,
Right.
then like porn, this person who's not present is also not actually working. So when he's working, he's not present. We have problems like near misses, right? We have,
Yes.
people not closing deals if they're in sales, for example. And that's because of all these different bleeds, the thoughts, the way their mind's going, all, etc. But now we also have people not working. In the same way, he's not engaging with his wife
Yes.
at home, sneaking off in the bathroom, dealing with, we call this the bleed, where it's grief and loss,
Yes.
because he's dealing with the guilt and shame of, and also this would tie into a bleed with identity, right?
Yeah.
He's now sneaking off in the bathroom at work watching porn. He's also doing it at home. He's avoiding his wife. This is why I have viral reels that talk about you're wasting time. The expression "you're wasting time" when you watch porn or have some form of addiction is that you're not using that time to do something to change your life. In this case, your marriage. In this case, the employer is not able to support this, let's call him Rob, who's jerking off in the bathroom. Right. So we have a problem of not being present at work, and losing productivity, not being present and actually creating more problems at both work and at home.
Right.
Creating more of a disconnect. We're losing Rob, and we give an employee assistance program that has nothing to do with the real problem. Like when we survey somebody, we can figure this out. And we discover this, like you said, James, because we were helping guys like this hypothetical Rob in their marriage. And then we learned and discovered that it was affecting them and forced us to dive deep into what's going on in the workplace here.
Yes.
Relationship truly is the foundation, and you can't have a relationship if you don't have one with yourself.
That's right. Yep.
So you'd argue identity is truly the foundation, wouldn't you?
I really do. I argue that identity is the foundation of everything. Who are you in the midst of you? Who are you if no one needed anything from you? Who are you? And people can't answer that question. I've got a friend that's been a friend for a long time, and he came by to see me the other day, and he wants to work with me, but he doesn't really know. And I asked him that question. He was honest. He says, I don't know. Emotionally answer that. I don't know who I am.
Do you want to hear? You want to hear something crazy? This is how serious this is as a problem, because you can't understand emotional regulation if you don't know who you are, because you act in someone you don't want to be when you're dysregulated.
That's right.
Think about it. If you've ever said something you didn't mean to say, if you've ever yelled at your kids and wish you didn't, if you'd ever, said yes and was people pleasing because you didn't want to say no, okay, you are emotionally dysregulated. I was talking to a man yesterday. Man, this guy, he loves cars, got a business rebuilding cars, and I love cars. So it was a really great coaching call. But he's talking about, the success of his business. And then we were talking about, the success of he's 18 months sober, like he's got some high level achievements, man. And I know some people might not think that going sober is high level achievement. I would argue that, but high level achievements. But when I asked him the question, who are you? He was stunned and he started talking. I said, stop, pause, please.
Yeah.
I said, who are you?
Yeah.
Because what most people do is they're either quiet and they say, I don't know, or they start rambling, man.
Yeah.
They just start rambling.
Yeah.
And it always includes the success of what maybe their job.
Right.
It includes, their kids. I want to be a husband. I want to be a father. Right. Women have struggled with this too. Women's identities are lost in motherhood. No, you're a mom, but that's not who you are. It's just part of
a role
who you are. It's part of the woman. Yes, it's a relationship.
That's right.
And so it blows my mind how, we've been talking about this for like 3 years already, but well, how long have we known each other? Is it 3 years or 2? I can't even know. We talk so much. It's like 10,
it's
like 20
years. We've been working together for 2 years already. So
excuse me, 2.
Yeah.
But it feels like so much longer because we talk every day and we work together so closely. But man, like we've been talking about this for years, and now it's this damn buzzword. So there's things like emotional regulation. Yes. But yet, if you listen to other people out there, they're not connecting the two.
No.
They're not.
No, and it's a quick fix. You've got the nice guy triangle, the victim triangle thing, and I've been thinking about that. And all I can do is think of a box. There's a box, and I call it the bound box or the binding box. And I haven't played this out a little bit, but when I was talking with my friend about it, I'm like, here's the thing. You have a loss of self. So the first corner of that box is a blur. And you just end up saying, this is what happens. We wear the mask, we wear the roles, the relationship, the religion. We wear it all so much that we forget that there's a person underneath, and we mistake the mask for the face. Mm-hmm. And then we get into this place. So what it is, there's a blur. And the blur sounds like this. This is just me. This is who I am. This is who I am. And then what we do, the second corner of that box, we think we're moving out, but we're just just 4 corners constantly. The second corner of that box is perform. So then we act out that blur. We put the mask on. Oh, this is who I am. And if I give it enough, and if I keep doing this, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be loved. I'm going to be successful. I'm going to be a good leader. That's the invisible agreement. That's the invisible contract, this performance. And then what happens? We get to this other corner and we think, well, my God, I thought I was coming out of this thing. I thought I was going to be free. I thought I was going to have what I wanted. That's the resentment. That's the unpaid contract. And then what we end up starting to say, well, nobody really cares. Nobody really listens. We're surrounded by people who love us, but we're so lonely, we don't even know how to breathe. And then the end of that box, before we go back into the cycle and the loop there, is to withdraw. And that's where we say, I'm not safe to be known. Nobody cares. I'm just going to hide. And most people live in that withdrawal state. Most people live in that spot, and they go to work and they do it all the time, and they don't know what's really happening. But the World Health Organization classifies this burnout, that what most people say, oh, that's just burnout. It's not. It's a design failure in the way we live, about how we show up and how we're taught. We even teach our children. I mean, you and I have learned to do this. When Abby cleaned her room the other day, and when she drew a picture the other day, she came and shows me this brilliant picture, and I did not go on and on about the picture. I did not say, oh, man, I thought it was amazing. But I asked the question. I said, oh, my goodness, how does that make you feel to draw something like that? And that focuses on that. And the same thing with the cleaning of her room. But the World Health Organization says it's an occupational phenomenon, not a personal one. And then it's a system failure expressed through a person. So 46% of employees in the United States, and this is 2023, 2024, say that they are burned out. Now, what would it be today?
Oh, it'd be way higher. Yeah, we'll wait. We'll get a couple more years later. But, I think what you just all expressed is so valuable that I want to just say it in a different way.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm going to use the triangle. Okay. And I'll start with you at home having problems in your relationship. Typically, this is what I call the nice guy triangle, but actually there's nice girls too. So you all get in it. Okay. Because you're not emotionally regulated. And I'm going to show you why. I'm going to prove it. Okay. So you can imagine a triangle. You can pick one corner. Doesn't matter which one. That's where you love and you'll do anything for your partner. You're going to try so hard.
That's right.
Okay. They're worth it. They can do no wrong, or maybe they are doing wrong, but you want to show up. You love them so bad. Okay. And then eventually you don't feel like they try as hard as you try. They don't love as much as you love. And so you start to withdraw. Okay. That's because you had a contract there.
Yes.
That's the invisible contract we were talking about. And because they don't love you the way that you feel you deserve, you feel like you're not good enough. Like nothing you ever do is good enough.
Yes.
Okay. And so you usually will probably cope here. That could be ditching responsibilities, working harder.
Yeah.
That could be alcohol. That could be friends, TV, sports, a new job, whatever. Okay. Until eventually you simmer and simmer until you boil over. Now that's going to be different for everybody. Maybe some of you will talk. You like to communicate. Communication is key, but it's actually a 2-hour lecture on the same fucking topic we've gone on over and over and over again, which is usually about a symptom, not an issue.
Yes.
Right? Sex is a common one at the home, right?
Yes.
Okay. Or you get a little angry, you heated. I talked to a guy today coaching and he punched walls a lot. Yeah. I did that, flip furniture. Or you can rage and you fucking really start to go nasty. That's who I used to be. Okay. Then you eventually go back to the beginning. Now we can do this at work too. You work your ass off. You want that promotion, but you didn't get the promotion.
That's right.
Oh shit, man. I worked so fucking hard. And they don't even recognize me. You know how bad of a nice guy I was? I built systems in an oil field company a long time ago, logistically for purchasing around is for Baker Hughes, Baker Oil Tools. And they adopted around the world, and some young kid got to go all around. Well, I was also a young kid, but another young kid got to go around the world and show everybody how to do it.
Yes.
I fucking quit. Now, I didn't quit for the right reasons with emotional regulation. I quit because you didn't recognize me and my systems? You know what? I was fighting with people every day. There was a guy I asked to hold my cigarette so I could quit. Let me have one only every 2 hours. He wouldn't give me my cigarettes, so I fucking pushed him. He's twice my size. I pushed him, screamed at him. Why the fuck would they send me around the world? But see, in the nice guy triangle back then, what did I do? Victimized myself.
Yes.
I had a covert contract. They should do this. I was entitled. We do this in our relationships because we have no regulation. I'm acting in anger because I've got to that point in the triangle.
Yeah.
Until I get back to the loving stage. I'm going to work so hard at home, work, whatever I'm talking about.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And it's always trying to earn something. And what it's trying to earn is a picture of yourself in the mirror that you can love. Because
you're afraid of not being good enough, lovable,
that's
appreciated, valued. What's this bullshit everybody's talking about with respect? Men need respect. Even Catherine teaches us. I don't even like the way she talks about it. Men need respect. Okay, come on. Everybody needs respect.
Human beings should be respected.
Human beings need respect.
Yes.
Otherwise, we feel invalidated. And now we start to fear not being good enough. Can't believe I'd be treated this way. And that's exactly why you hear people say, I've tried everything. Yeah. You go from that point in the triangle, well, I'll do anything, to I've tried everything. Yeah. Nobody's fucking tried everything anywhere. If people like us are still learning, investing in ourselves, we have conversations daily so we can grow.
Yeah.
Because, dude, darkness, because we don't have the fear that you're talking about.
Right.
I want to talk about facing this fear for a second, James, for everybody listening and watching. Because I believe that if you want emotional regulation, the actual real step is facing your fears. And the reason why is because it points you in the direction of who you are.
Yeah.
Okay? This morning, I'll tell a little story. This morning, I think 4:30 in the morning, Riddick just burst out screaming. And I said, "What's up, baby? What's up?" And Catherine was also awake. And she said, he's afraid to go to the bathroom alone. And this is something that I'm working on with my kids right now, is facing fears. Okay? So I said, Riddick, buddy, I want you to go to the bathroom, okay? And I know you're scared. I know it. But Riddick only has one kidney too, so Catherine chimes in. You only have one kidney. You have to go pee, buddy. Okay? And so it's tears for a minute more. I'm like, but buddy, I don't want you to pee your bed. You got to go. Okay. And then afterwards, though, now see, in his moment of his panic and fear, I need to be emotionally regulated. I don't need to teach him. I don't need to
Yeah.
explain anything to
That's
him.
right.
There's no monsters. There's no bad guys
Yeah.
because he ain't fucking listening.
Yeah. He can't.
He can't hear it.
He
Some
can't hear it.
of you don't realize this. When people are emotionally dysregulated, super sad, tears, shutting down, angry, they don't actually physically comprehend. There's a part of your brain that shuts off. Okay? So
Yes.
once Riddick is done, I go to him and I say, dude, feel better because you got to pee? Yeah. Did you notice that there was no monsters? Yeah. Did you notice there was no bad guys for you to beat up so you didn't have to protect mama? Yeah. And he smiles a little bit. I said, were you scared? He said, yeah. I said, do you think you'll still be scared? He said, yeah. And I said, but do you think you know now that even if you're scared, there's no monsters and no bad guys?
That's right.
And he said, yeah. He gave me a hug. Right? It is so important to understand emotional regulation because you can do this anywhere. You can't get where you want to go if you jump in the box like James described it, the triangle like I describe it,
Yeah.
the crazy train like Catherine describes it, or she actually has a box too. She calls it the padded room.
Yeah.
Put your husband in a padded room in your mind,
Yeah.
right? None of these places are going to create a space for where you want to go.
That's right. That's right. And the thing is a lot of people don't understand that the largest fear, and this is going to be hard for some people to really even agree with, but the greatest fear is that silent space between knowing who you are on the inside and acting as that person on the outside. And that really just almost spiritual space of silence in the mind where you have to actually ask and answer the questions. If you don't go there, which is the scariest place in the world, you'll never find freedom for life. You might find freedom from something, but you'll never be free for living.
And I think we should be really transparent with you guys watching and listening. You know, when we have someone who works with us, a client starts this process, the number one way they describe learning who they are. So, because there's many things, but one of the top things is emotional regulation. Because again, shutting down is not emotional regulation. Being quiet is not emotional regulation. Okay. The number one way that people describe what they feel when we go past secondary emotions,
Yes.
okay, is not actually fear. They feel like they're drowning. And I don't mean to scare you, but it's because the average age of people joining us and doing the work finally isn't a proactive 17 or 18 or 25-year-old. It's somebody who's average 38 to 45.
Yeah.
Average, a little bit younger. I would say even more older. That's why we spread it from 38 to 45.
Yeah.
Right? You have a lot of masks to peel off.
Yeah.
A lot of labels. I call it peel the labels off. I have a song coming out right away next week on that. And this is exactly why we say we've tried everything, because we go back to the fear of not being good enough. You know, I have a song for that coming up too, James. And I say in the song, you read the books, you've done the coaches, you know, you've done the therapy, you've tried everything, right?
Yeah.
In reality, you haven't.
You haven't.
And there's lots of different ways you could try. You journaled.
Yeah.
I fucking failed hard, right? You know, we literally have to implement, we have to try, we have to keep growing. And until you understand, you need to release the negative that draws you into the fear, like your guilt, your shame. Without overcoming those primary emotions that you're actually needing to deal with, you can't get anywhere, which is why some of you don't understand why let's go back to business for a second, why your business's bottom line is not doing well, even if you're doing well. Because you ain't dealing with your culture, your people's shame and guilt, because they're all living with some form of shame and guilt.
That's right.
Society has done that.
Yep. And it's something to think about. It's not your responsibility to manage it.
Oh.
But being that most people are there 60% of their lives, of their day, why not provide the opportunity for them to learn, to grow, and then benefit from it? That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just grow together. What a legacy. What a legacy to be able to say that the culture of my life and my company and my organization and my home has expanded beyond the walls of both. And then you get to really look back and go, huh, what a legacy. And you can experience it while you're alive. It doesn't have to be something that people talk about posthumously after you die. It can be something you can experience now. I think that's the heartbeat of what we do every day, Cass, is that we're seeing a legacy built without even our fingerprints on it, because people are becoming so uniquely themselves and living a life so amplified because of walking with us for just a short time, that we get to see all of this work together as a beautiful song, a symphony, harmonizing and walking. I love
Well,
it.
I think James, that, if we think about emotional regulation, but tied to the real world for a
Yeah.
second, I think that most of us have proven we're not emotionally regulated when we get very frustrated at the world.
Yes.
Like, if we're honest, the world is going to shit. Our leaders are making terrible mistakes. I left Canada because it's fucking communist up there, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or it's going that way anyway. There's certain social media that won't even it's not even permitted to go in there anymore.
Mm.
You can go to jail for having certain opinions now. And I'm talking life.
Wow.
It's so serious that I don't think I should say it on air for what the opinions would be. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And the problem is, we have not been taught to identify who we are no matter what is going on around us. And this is why it affects us in our home. This is why I have this common expression that I say, men and women are expected to be men and women in relationships, and they were never taught. Right?
Yes.
This is the same thing with business now. Now that we know what we know with statistics and how the bottom line is being affected because of relationship, because of addiction, because of grief, because of parenting, not just relationship at home, but parenting, all these 7 human bleeds. We know now that the reason why we can go into a company and help them, or people come to us so often for marriage support, or if they're single, being proactive to do that before they get married, or coming to you for identity, Dennis for purpose, right? Like, the reason we see that is because more and more people are recognizing we can't afford to stand by dysregulated and mad at the fucking world.
Right.
Go back to COVID for a second. Yeah. What good did it do me to bitch and complain that the government shut my gym down?
Right.
Absolutely none. That's emotional dysregulation. Back in the triangle, the last time I ever blamed anybody. Fuck, man, I made $1 million a year before. I should have paid off my house, not buy cars.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I can't be mad at the government and the circumstances of the world. Right. And I think the problem is, if you start to regulate by that, but then I wasn't emotionally regulated. I was just getting to work, but I figured it out now. And when you start to realize we could actually all work together, which is what you're talking about, we're learning that we can disrupt divorce, that we can stop the rapture. Fuck, why can't Jesus come down and give us high fives and hugs instead of blow this fucking bitch up? You know what I'm saying? Why does the economy have to suck because of a war? Why can't we thrive because we take care of our people?
That's right. I think we can. I think we can thrive. But here's the thing. In order to change the world, you have to be you. Because otherwise you just lead people into interacting with someone who's not real, loving someone who doesn't love themselves. And we wonder, where do we lose track? Where do we go? I mean, you see that in your friendships. You see that in the relationships that you have professionally and your colleagues. When something changes in you and you no longer provide what they want, they're gone.
Yes.
So they don't love you for you. They just want what you have.
Exactly. It's why so much of what we talk about, guys, I know you wanted to hear exactly about emotional regulation today, but you have to understand there's so many components and we have to break them up in order to get you what you need.
Right.
Because it's not counting backwards from 10 and fucking anger management, man. No. It's not. No. It's not. I am no longer an abusive asshole who used to rage on my wife. I'm no longer. She can say or do anything, and I'm not going to flip furniture. I'm not going to hit. I'm not going to fucking push. I'm not going to scream and call her fucking names. I'm not going to do anything. And it's not because I'm hiding. Yeah. It's not because I'm a pushover. And this, by the way, it's not like Catherine's fucking bonkers or anything, but you know what I'm saying? Like, whatever comes our way, I know who I am.
That's right.
It's like, even like the business, we're not getting the views on social media the way we used to. Right. It's almost like we're starting over. It's not affecting our marriage. Fuck, man. Like, emotional regulation is key. Yes. But with that being said, guys, we got to let you go today. We're going to join you every day for lunch, as long as we don't have something like my power going out, So we'll see you guys next week. I hope you have a great